Hi there. You're going to see a beautiful conversation with me and Neil coming up now. We were going to do it in a really nice setting, but the music and the construction next door was too loud, so we moved ourselves to a nice office environment. As I was editing the video, I realized there's some echo going on in the background. Again, the conversation was beautiful, so I hope you'll take the time to listen to Neil, his insights, his journey, despite the fact that it sounds like it's echoed. I'm working on that slowly, step by step. I would love to do more conversations in person and move away from Zoom. Take the time, listen to this conversation, have the patience, enjoy. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and sharing some of the things that you've learned and how you've grown. I'm really, really excited.
Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, looking forward to it, Josh.
What really initiated my approach to contact you was when we had a breathwork session next to each other. And I felt usually in a group I'm not letting my processes come up, and on that day the facilitator was encouraging me. And what was really nice that you started also a process, and when I mean process, it's like a bit loud and expressing what's coming up. After the 1 hour when we were sharing, you were saying that you felt encouraged because somebody was going through a process, that you could also go through yours, whatever that is, right? So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but that's how I'm going to introduce you, how I met you. But before we go into that, tell me a little bit about you so that we can know what you do, what you're offering.
I'm looking forward to getting into the breathwork and just the power of energy in a group and kind of permission that one person gives to another person, and just it's a hard thing to explain or understand, but you just pick up on stuff when someone's like really expressing themselves. It's like, oh, I can do that. I can go there. So looking forward to that. So I work predominantly with men, and it's with helping men understand themselves better, with really increasing their emotional intelligence and their capacity to deal with emotions, to express them, to understand themselves better. I suppose the aim of it is to have more inner peace and calmness. The kind of clients I work with are mainly high performers, so it's often they come looking to change one external goal or one external part of their environment, and then they'll be happy. But often where the work goes is it's about really connecting to themselves and understanding themselves, and that's the path I've been on for a while now. So it's where I feel I provide most value.
And when you're saying that, what do you mean? Like, let's say nobody's heard this, and I want to keep this for as many people who want to hear this. What is EQ and what is IQ? Like, when you're saying you're helping men with EQ, how do they recognize this? Because as women, we know this a lot. So how do you encourage men what EQ is and how it's different from IQ?
I have IQ at a high level as being logical intelligence. So the ability to comprehend paragraph sentences, maths, analyze, more analytical brain, whereas EQ is more the emotional brain. It's more connecting with your intuition. It's about really, really understanding yourself better and understanding people in your environment better. I suppose I was quite analytical in my past, and it kept me quite safe because I could function at a good IQ level. And so it's like, okay, I had a steady job, I was doing quite well, but my environment wasn't stimulating. It was like I was feeling a bit boring. I didn't feel like I was really just passing time and just kind of distracting myself at the weekend and just like not allowing myself to connect to myself and understand myself. And I suppose once I started going down that path of like sitting with feelings, sitting with uncomfortable emotions, it's like, this is where the lightness comes in life and where more play can be experienced and more joy, creativity, and a higher performing capacity. I suppose with EQ, how I help men is, for me, it's about training emotional capacity. So if you're not very comfortable with any emotions, or you have some emotions that are less comfortable than others, like anger, sadness, grief, it's about just gradually becoming more comfortable with them. And just building up that tolerance over time, that it's not something that, we've probably been conditioned over decades to shut these down or to not express them or go into them. So it's just about creating a safe space where you can start to open up those doors and just sit in that space to allow that pressure and intensity to release, so that you can function with more ease.
So how would you encourage, so we have this whole thing from the women, they're like, I want my man isn't emotionally available, I'd love him to be emotionally available, and then there's this catch when it's like, be ready, because when he does become it, you're going to run. Could you give us some advice when that might happen, how to hold that container? And, like we were saying, do you encourage him to go to men's circles? Because that's where he needs a safe space, and maybe his partner is not where he's going to start that process. Does that resonate? Or
yeah, definitely. I've been going to
how was it for you?
Yeah, I've been going to men's circle every Monday evening for the last year and a half. And I kind of go as like, when I go, which is pretty much every week, maybe once every 3 months I miss it, but like I kind of go as like, when I show up there and have this space that's held by other men, and I'm just accepted and acknowledged by other men, but just being me and authentically me, it's like, it's so powerful. It's like a lot of issues and problems I had that I was like, I'm the only person that experiences this. When I go into that space and it's usually on a team, it's usually about relationships, sometimes it's about financial stress, but a lot of the problems are like quite collective. And it's like just being in that space is like, I'm seen, I'm okay, I'm enough. And then more on the relationship side with dealing with women, I think men and women just want to be heard, not fixed. Not healed. It's just like, just want a space to express.
So you feel like being seen and heard is very important?
I think so, yeah, definitely. And it's all about not being judgmental. Because if you pick up someone judging you as you're saying something, you're going to shut down. You're going to go, this isn't safe for me to show who I am. Right. So it's about like, building up that tolerance of allowing someone to just be as they are. It's often what I've noticed is problems don't need to be fixed, they just need to be expressed.
Wow. And so you were saying you were working with the athletes and the corporate. And so these high performance people, they don't get that level of success, or you felt you've encouraged them to go through this path and they're feeling more fulfilled in the same job description that they're having. How do you nudge them into this area? Or because do they know this from the beginning when they're working with you, or it's just with time that
Yeah, with me, so I have a program and it's very much, it's individual and it's tailor-made, so it's like people come in with different goals, with different wants, with different outcomes that they want to attach to, or that they want to achieve. And the reason for the athlete side is because I played rugby professionally for a period of time. And then the corporate side is I was in finance for the last few years. And I suppose I learned a lot from both paths, and particularly on the sports side, I had very little mental and emotional support. And I wasn't really aware of the impact it had on my performance, on my beliefs, and how I could perform. And so often now I attract people that's going, okay, I want to play at a higher level, or maybe I want a different job, and that's how often the work starts. But in order to get that and to actually enjoy the process, we go on a bit of a journey together, which is beautiful, and it's where the work kind of needs to go, because you can change parts of your external environment. What I've noticed in the past is like, unless I'm feeling slightly different internally, the same pattern is just going to repeat itself. You go, okay, now I'm on higher money, that gives me a bit of excitement for a few weeks, but then I'm just flat again. And then I'm just numbing myself or distracting myself at the weekend and just not feeling very energetic.
So you need to get an even higher kick every time, or it's just short-lived?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just kind of like a repetition of a pattern. Right. And it's about kind of catching that pattern and go, okay, is this one serving me? Is it good or is it not? And often patterns are there to keep us safe, but they often keep us quite small and limited, and stop a lot more enjoyment and freer expression.
You were saying that you felt very safe in your IQ, and now you feel more fulfilled and playful when you're with your EQ, like you're more having a higher emotional intelligence. So what brought you from one to the other? Did you have like a big pain point, something big happened in your life, or did you just get smart and ahead of the game?
I think a bit of both. So when I was playing rugby, I had a lot of limiting beliefs as a teenager, and I didn't feel I could make it. And then at the age of 20 or 21, I decided, okay, I'm going to go for it. And at 23, I got a trial for a club in France, and they signed me up for the season, which was phenomenal. I was like, big achievement. And then the third game in, I had a bad injury, and it wasn't operated on properly, and that was the last time I played. And I kind of just go, okay, that's shit, but I'll just move on, and I went into finance. But it took a few years before I realised that the stories I was telling myself and others about that experience was like quite victimised. And it's like, okay.
So can I ask you, what would have been the story? What's the victim story?
Yeah, just kind of poor me, that I had this dream, I had this passion, I trusted in the universe, and it didn't work out, and it was outside of my control. But that was definitely limiting me moving past it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's like now, what I've learned from processing it, and I possibly still have more anger to deal with it. It's like it's hard to know when like a traumatic experience like that is fully resolved.
Yes.
But I just kind of go with the approach. It's like, I'll deal with what I can take on today, and whatever wants to show up tomorrow, I'm open to looking at.
Exactly where I wanted to take you, and I love that because you are processing slowly anger that you had, which was underneath the pity story. Right? It was actually all this anger about having lost your life, passion, or whatever, and then we become a victim, and some of us might get out there and ruin other people, but you often end up in this pity story because I need someone to keep telling me how amazing I am because I thought I would get there through this journey. And so there is where was very fascinating me about you, and which I'd love you to share and put words on. I was telling you that I was also in a situation dealing from anger coming from outside, and I'm so sensitive to it. I was aware of, even this anger is 30 meters away, it makes me like paralyzed, I'm scared because I'm feeling it being processed but not in a safe way. So I call that, now I realize I call that dangerous anger. And you were having this process right next to me. I could sense its anger. It was loud. And I said to you afterwards, I was like, wow, how do you do that? You have safe anger. And can you talk about it? Because you explained it. It's like, how do you process your anger next to me? You're 1 meter away. It's loud. It's the same energy, but I'm not getting out of my process and I'm feeling pretty safe. It's like it's in your bubble. So how did you move away from the pity story to processing to the anger, but also this is my anger? Did you have that experience?
Yeah. I think over time it's just, for me, it was just accepting that I'm fully accountable for every decision I make, for every outcome, kind of sometimes regardless of how much I can control. Because like with, say, to go back to the rugby, it's like, it didn't work out. But it's like I met my now wife when I was back home in Ireland rehabbing, which I wouldn't have if I was in France. And now I'm helping athletes with their mental and emotional health, which is like I'm extremely passionate about and fortunate to go down this path. So it's like, if I didn't have that shitty experience, I probably wouldn't have, gone this journey. I would have just stayed comfortable because like the external environment would have continuously reinforced my decisions. So it's like I wouldn't have had a need to look under some stones and figure it out. So it's kind of like from that very challenging place is where it's like where I've grown from. And if I go back further, I have my relationship with my dad would not be great, and I would say he's emotionally quite unavailable. And a lot of my childhood, teenage years, early 20s was kind of poor me. Yeah. It's like I would like, he should acknowledge and accept me the way I want to be acknowledged and accepted. And it's actually like kind of the rugby story, but also in relationship with my dad. It's like that's what's kind of guiding me to work with men. That's why I'm passionate if I can hopefully be a father in the future, that I'm very emotionally available. That's because of like what I was lacking in the past. So it's often through those challenging times that you go, okay, this is something I would like to help with the next generation or with people around me to make their path slightly easier. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you process your anger from a safe space, like someone around you, or at least someone like me feels it's safe, because you are totally aware it's yours. And you said some words like you're using it to create, or you're using it to move forward. Or I think our facilitator said that, like you can use this anger to move forward and create as opposed to destroy. Do you have that?
Yeah.
Do you like sometimes go back and I'm going to kill my dad, or I'm going to kill the guy who tripped me over and that's why I had this accident?
After breathwork, I'm always very zen. I'm like, I have no anger left. Yeah, breathwork's very interesting because, like, say the few classes we've done together, sometimes I don't even aware what energy's flowing through my body.
Amazing.
I was like, I don't even know if it's mine, if it's someone else's in the room, if it's a past life. I was like, at the start when I was doing breathwork, it's like my mind, my IQ wanted to kick in and go, okay, what could this mean? Is this linked to a certain place? It's like, there's just pent-up energy stored in my body. And it's like, I don't actually need to figure it out. I just need a safe space to let it out so that I can move with a bit more ease, so I can have a bit more fun and enjoyment. And so, yeah, I've kind of like, the last while I've been going to breathwork, it's like, stop analysing. I don't need to understand everything because there's a lot of life that I don't understand. Actually allowing myself permission to be okay with that is like where the power is. It's just like, I don't have to figure it all out. I don't even have to be the master at my own field. I just have to want to improve each day and want to show up. And it's like, I can do that for these. And it's like, just that freedom of like, just being myself is enough is like, for me, where the real power is. So it's like, the challenge for me, and I think for a lot of men, is like, how connected to our bodies can we get? Because I feel, I've never been a woman, but I feel like women are much more in tune with their bodies, able to express emotions, tap into their intuition and wisdom, whereas for men it's a lot less comfortable because society is quite logical, and how to function in society is quite logical. So to kind of reverse that and go, actually, the more I can allow out of myself and understand, it's like that's where the magic is.
And do you know, like, what are the three top things that men struggle with? Do you know?
Yeah, I think kind of back to purpose, which is probably part of this question and the last question. So men need a purpose, and it's important. It's like, I kind of see myself and some men as like, we're just kind of busy monkeys that, like, if we're like doing a certain task for enough hours of a day or over a week and it's serving a purpose of providing for a family or that, it's like, creates a lot of contentment and safety. And it's like often enough to not need to do too much more work. But it's like when you don't have that purpose, or you're unsure of it, or you're changing it, it's like that's pretty uncomfortable for a man to sit with. And with regards to the emotions, I think guilt and shame are big ones. And particularly good, a lot of my clients are back in Ireland, and guilt and shame is quite prevalent in society, and how people speak to each other, and what's passed through generations. It's like there's a lot of guilt and shame, and it's those kind of lower vibration emotions that people attach to, and men sit in. And I suppose when you're feeling guilty, or you're feeling shameful for doing something or not doing something, it's very hard to change because they're quite heavy, and they take up a lot of space. And I suppose it's just about becoming aware of that. It's like you don't need to change it. It's just like, how come I'm feeling the way I'm feeling because of an action I've taken or haven't taken? It's just allowing that to be enough for now, to not have to fix it, or to not have to have zero guilt or shame. It's just to be okay to go, okay, there's a bit of that there, or often it's anxiety, it's fear about the future, and the future uncertainty, and with men it's often about providing financially. I think when a man has a good amount of money coming through his bank account every month, it's like, pretty happy and content, and life flows. But when it's challenged, or it changes, or the future's less certain than we would like to perceive it to be, so that's when a lot of pent-up energy starts to get stirred in the body.
So what do men usually do with that pent-up energy?
These are very general questions.
Well,
every man's different.
So what would you say are the unhealthy things that a woman can expect when things are not going right in the relationship, and all these standard men-related emotions are being stirred up, and they usually say this pent-up energy comes. From men I've talked to, it's, there's some things like pornography or the affair comes in. We go shopping usually. So what other things would you say are distractions that men are sometimes led to that unless they're guided away from it?
I think one is definitely scrolling on your phone.
Yeah.
I think that's people spend a lot of time, myself included sometimes, when I don't want to sit with something, spend a lot of time just aimlessly scrolling at the phone, just going, I don't want to deal with this. I know there's something there, but I'm not going to even give it space. I think often with men, it kind of comes into that kind of immature masculine, where it's get a bit niggly, start picking up on stuff that often would go over when a man is centered and grounded. Often women can test the men a lot, and it's if you're centered and grounded, that stuff just goes over your head. And it's this is just part of the process, and women like testing men to know if it's safe. But it's when a man isn't centered and grounded, it's those little tests are just small stuff that usually doesn't cause any friction. It causes friction. So it's just to be it's all about awareness with that stuff. It's okay, my wife's left the cup out. It's usually that wouldn't bother me, but how come today it's really affecting me? It's it's probably not an issue with my wife.
Right.
It's probably some of my own stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have what you would call for yourself accountability? I call it for myself accountability responses. I'll know, it's going there. Take yourself out of the situation. Talk to a friend before you enter. Sometimes it's too late. Like I say, I jumped out of the airplane without a parachute. I land, and it just took me over too fast. But I usually do that. So do you have that? As a man, what do you have in your system? We can stop. Do you have stop buttons? I'm not going to go there, or you can feel it in you. Did that take a level of maturity, or did you have to learn more about yourself to realize I'm reacting?
I definitely took a bit of training, because I find I'm good at managing my emotions when there isn't too much intensity behind them.
Right.
But it's when there's a high level of intensity,
right.
Then it goes, instead of responding, I'm going to react, unless I can catch it.
Right.
And for me, it's taken training over time to build up a tolerance with that.
Right.
And instead of just pushing and projecting my crap, it's going, okay, why am I feeling that way? And it's for me, sometimes I just get up and walk around. I feel moving the body is really good for me, and my body responds very well for it. Sometimes I just go out and start screaming. So it's if I'm feeling that intense anger, it's not going to be functional in a conversation with my wife. It's okay, I need to do something with this to just release the pressure off. And because it wouldn't be healthy for us to have a conversation when I'm in that state of mind. And I know that. I know nothing good will come from it. Just damaging both of us. It's just, for me, it's about just tapping into it and just going, okay, what can I do to release it? And sometimes it's I actually need to sit with this one for a few days before I even bring it up with my wife or whoever it is I have a problem with. And then often what I notice is in a few days' time, the problem is just gone. It's actually not that relevant anymore.
What brings you out of your comfort zone?
What brings me out of my comfort zone? I've been doing that a lot over the last year. I've noticed I've been too far out of my comfort zone too frequently. I feel a certain amount of self-development or introspectiveness is good.
Yeah.
But to function in society day to day, you need to have a certain level of comfort as well.
Yes.
So for me, it's about getting the balance. It's it's great to look under the surface and shift everything and see what lands. And I've done acting class and poetry, and was in a movie 2 months ago, and I've done all these different creative stuff that I never would have done before, and a lot of other stuff. And so that stuff's pushing myself out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
But it's in quite a safe setting. So with the acting class, it's okay to just start to dabble, and just start to allow myself to express myself a bit freer, and just figure it out, and just give myself permission to not be perfect.
So what would you say that would really take you out of your comfort zone? Like if I would say you have to do this tomorrow, I wouldn't say I'm not ready for that, but it is something you might be getting to.
Was perform a comedy stand-up. So that's like that.
Because maybe nobody laughs.
Nobody laughs, but like it's bad enough being on stage, maybe talking about challenging enough being on stage talking about mental health or something at a certain level of awareness or knowledge about.
Right.
But when you're like going up on stage and wanting people to find you funny, it's like that's an extra level.
Exactly.
So
okay.
like,
That
I think that would be one that would scare me shitless. I don't think I'd enjoy it at all. That's why I decided not to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do it in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like my body knows what I can handle and what I can't.
Right.
And my mind doesn't fully understand that. And it's just to trust my body that like what I can deal with is enough. Because one thing I noticed with breathwork, often last year when I was getting into breathwork, I was like wanting emotional trauma releases every time. It's like, if I'm not crying, if I'm not weeping, it's not a good session. I was like, that's crazy. I was like having these blissful experiences and I was telling myself it wasn't enough. I was like, just allow the body to guide me. And just like when I have space and capacity, then I'm probably sleeping well, hydrated, enough food in my system. External environment's pretty safe or well known. It's like, then I'll have space to take on stuff and to look at stuff that maybe I've been pushing down for a while.
That makes a lot of sense. It's coming into this heart-centered experiences for men.
I've noticed, actually for the last few months, like a bit of physical pain around my heart area. I find like my body's pretty physically sensitive. So it's like if I have a mental or emotional imbalance, it comes out in my body. And it's like my neck gets out of place or sore back, or this one was like a pain in my chest. I was like, often people want to like a physical solution to a physical ailment. But I was like, I know for me this was emotional. And I was just like, I could feel it coming up as the breathwork was going. And I was like, is it something I want to deal with? Is it something I want to breathe into? But I think I kind of could feel that you were off on your journey and expressing yourself. I was like, it kind of just gave me energy and permission to go, it's safe to do it here. Because I'm a big person. I don't like taking up too much space. And I actually, that's one thing I noticed in the past, is like because I have a big frame and I'm a big person, I often keep myself a bit smaller so I don't intimidate people. Whereas like kind of it's like making myself smaller and weaker than I need to be. It's like it's okay for me to be big and strong once it's safe. And so yeah, I suppose when I heard you, I was like, okay, let's just speed up my breathing, let's become a bit more active, and then that's where I started to just have some realizations around the reason for that tightness. And it was just a fear of...
So you're actually getting insights. Okay, this tightness, this insights. Okay. And so you're feeling this as physical pain, but you're able to see that it's insights coming in, what it was associated with, like mentally.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, breathwork is like it kind of often forms, it joins a few dots that are there. It's like, so I have a few things that I'm noticing over a few weeks prior to it, and then it's like, a few dots join, and I was like, that's what that means. So for me, it was wanting to live with a more open heart and to allow myself to build connection with people with ease and to not have a barrier up to protect myself, to go, okay, when you show some of your cards, then I'll show some of mine. I want to be like, I think I have a big heart, and I feel like I've always been like, when I was young, I was quite sensitive, quite loving, quite open, and it's like that kind of, that's some of my natural traits. It's like I want to get back to that, because I felt like a good few years of protecting my ego and identity and having these barriers where very few people could get into. And I kind of learned that from what I saw in society, so I replicated it, where it's like, I want to help men express themselves better. I want to help men just love themselves more. And I was like, I need to love myself more, and I need to like tap into that. And like if I'm to go macro view, it's like society would function a lot better if people express themselves and live from this place than this place. Because here's all fear and insecurity.
Yes, I mean that's my dream. It's like, how can we have a a society and culture where we're just living from our heart space, which is usually that space that we are living from when we meet, like when we fall in love. It's like 3-month period, and then the ego comes in, all these protections, and then it's chaos. Or when we meet someone for the first time and we like them, and we're like, oh, and then within 2 weeks, oh, not so interesting. And and the ego, it wants to look for the better thing. It wants to look, well, this was maybe something better coming. Oh, I'll keep this because it could be useful in a future date. And it has all these scarcities. Yes, it's not going to be enough. And so there's something better coming. And let's not be in this present moment. Let's look where there's something more.
It's a real fear of being present. It's like, what happens if I'm present and I'm not worried? I'm not bringing up my past or worried about my future. The one thing I love about the Balinese is that they're so present. That they don't think about retirement plans in 10 years' time, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what's happened in the past. They just live with a very open heart and very present. It's just a beautiful culture to be around. I think being here has helped me with that. Because back home it would be a lot more challenging, and I'd receive a lot more projections if I was to live with an open heart and to express myself and just say to someone I love them that I don't know for that length of period. It'd be uncomfortable for everyone involved. Whereas, I've learned from the Balinese, it's just like they're so accepting of their circumstances, of their situation, even all the trouble that they're going through now at the moment with no tourism. You just kind of accept it, stay present, and keep their heart open. And it's just a beautiful culture to be around.
Yes. Sometimes they say when you have less, you're more open-hearted because you have less to lose. There's always this fear it might go up. And, So can you tell me a little bit, if you would be willing, how it was for you when you were in your mind? Like, you had all these protections, you were going around the world, you played rugby, you're probably a friendly guy, but inside there was this, I can speak for me, when I see where I am now, it was just like, I can't even remember that version, but definitely alone. You had everybody, but you're feeling alone. And so what, as a man, like, when you went that shift, how were you then with all your protection? Do you remember? You actually felt alone, or helpless, or weak?
I think with the awareness I have now, if I'm to look back at situations in my past, it's like a real fear of being seen. So it's a real I can't show them all of me, or it mightn't be enough. And so what I learned is if I only show different people different parts of me, then I can be accepted at the level that's comfortable for them. So I'd have different friends for going drinking or out partying, or I'd have different friends for playing sports, or different friends for a hike, or some friends for deep conversations. There was quite few of them. But it's I just played the game where I wouldn't be seen. I'd be seen enough to build some bit of a connection, but not seen too much where I might be exposed and vulnerable. And I've put myself out too far. And so that's it's been a challenge to change that narrative and to become safer and more accepting of myself, to show more of myself to people. But it's been very free and liberating. And it's so nice to just be myself, or as much as myself as I can allow in a certain situation. Go, the outcome's kind of irrelevant. It's just
Do you feel you get even more support from the universe, angels, like how you like using the word that you did before? It's almost magical from the heart space.
I've made so many connections over the last year from just doing my best to show up as myself. And just even allowing myself to feel a bit fragile in a conversation, and just be aware of it and just allow it to continue. Not need to go, okay, I need to pull back now, this isn't safe. Because I know adult me is safe. It's just that inner, younger Neil that's we learned these rules to function in society, and now you're tearing them apart. And he's a bit pissed off at me at times, so I kind of have to tune back into him and go, it's okay. It's I've got you at this stage. We're fine in most situations. So it's we don't need, now we don't need it, but it's connect to my body and that inner child that just wants to feel really safe, and just to allow him know that he's enough, and that his discomfort's okay as well.
Wow, it's amazing. Do you think you could have come so far alone? Like when you went to the journey to start opening your heart, you were with your wife. Do you feel that you could have been where you are now if you'd done it alone, like without the breath work, without outside help?
Absolutely not. It would have taken a lot longer. Yeah, because it's like my mind just wants to keep in the same patterns, even if they're very dysfunctional. I'm used to them and they're normal. So yeah, for me, really accepting help and support has been a big one. Because it's like, I feel like a lot of men have this perception, particularly when it's in competitive sporting background, it's like, I have it all sorted, I have it all solved, I don't need any support, I'm good. And it's so isolated and so lonely that it's horrible to function from. And it's horrible to say all these problems are unique to me and to make these stories and narratives. So like going to men's circle every week, doing Reiki regularly, have a kinesiologist that I get sessions with, coaching once a month. It's like I've a lot of support that I get every week, every month, external support that just helps me. It's like I need it, and I love receiving it. It's just so, it's really freeing, and it's just like keeps giving me permission to keep going. Because I feel like if I was by myself through my journey and didn't have my wife or other support, I'd probably go, let's just get comfortable again. And it would take me a lot longer to feel the level of inner peace and calmness that I've accumulated.
So they say from there, they say like the ego loves to be special. I also just say a part of me, ego is also so overused these days, like trauma and ego, some of these words, but they're let's say the unaware part of me who wasn't at the moment available or able to say support is good, just didn't have that, thought that she's the only one who has this life story, or this has only happened to her. And for me, it was very healing to know, like, wow, other people are in this world. It wasn't just me. In between, it was like, no, but I have a worse one. They're in the same boat as me, but mine was still worse. Like, mine is still worse. So it's very interesting when you move out of, like, it's not only me, okay, there's others in it, but I'm the special one in this also. I've got the most highest. So after that phase, when you can get more humbled, you're like, no, because everybody's in it. It's just like completely standard life stories. Some of us might do it aware or unaware, but we're all literally men, women, affairs or marriages breaking or going on forever. They're just very standard. Right? And it's just special how you have done it because you are the special character in your movie. Right? So that's what helped me realize, yes, but it was my movie and this is my journey. It doesn't matter how it went with other people. And then to the next level of let's get support and grow and know community helps be easy to talk about it. Why do you think, when you said at the end now that if you didn't have the support you'd go into that comfort, why would we still want to, or why would you still want to have this story being unique to you or feeling special through? Like, I always feel it's a loophole. We don't go and look for help because we're shy or embarrassed or shameful, but in the end, some part of us just wants to hold on to the self because I'm so special when I'm that. It's like, who would I be on the other side? So did you have this also when you were going through this process, like, wait, there's a whole part of me that's going to break, fall away, who would I be?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I still have those moments. Right. It's like if I let go of too much of my identity, it's like, who the hell am I?
Exactly.
And I think it's to do with that, like, safe steps and levels. Right. It's like if you take on too much, it's like you could have a nervous breakdown. It's like your body could actually just shut down and go, no, too much, and like properly break down because we're all very fragile. It's like, that's one thing I've realized.
Can you say that again?
That we are all very fragile. Because even the more I understand myself, the more sometimes I feel I'm extremely powerful, and then like the other flip side of polarity is I'm extremely fragile. It's like it takes very little to rock me some days, and it's like that's part of the gift. It's like to kind of accept that and go, okay, it's like life can be scary, life can be very challenging, but it's very lonely when you're doing it all by yourself and you're not putting out a hand to receive support. Because when I started like receiving a lot of support, part of my ego wasn't happy with it because it's like, well, we created these stories that these problems are big and unique and they're mine to own, and now it's like, oh, now this person's saying it's quite common. I'm like, fuck. I was like, I've built this up, and it's like just to like kind of, as you said, kind of be humbled by that and go, isn't it good that it's like I'm not as unique as I want to tell myself? Just like let the shoulders drop. Yeah, take a bit more breath.
So would you say you're enjoying life more, having actually more fun when you realize we're all in the same boat, kind of?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm having a lot more fun, a lot more playful, more that kind of like childlike energy where it's just like allowing myself to dream, to think of different stuff, to try stuff and not be too attached to an outcome. It's like that freedom of expression is beautiful. It's just like, oh, I can do anything, and it's like my identity isn't focused on just one result and one metric to say if that result is successful or a failure. As we kind of spoke about it beforehand, it's like my metric for a lot of stuff is like how much can I learn and how quickly can I learn. It's like if I keep on that, it's like the other stuff will look after itself over time. It's just allow that to be enough. I think we all just want to feel enough. It's like when we don't, that's what drives a lot of negative behaviour and insecurities really creep up. It takes a while to train and to accept that and to keep accepting it because it gets challenged every day.
And to close, I really have a topic which I find very, a word which I'm very passionate about, and how we can find fun and also taking that as responsibility. My personal journey, I've realized that I'm actually responsible for everything, and not maybe everything the other person does, but to a certain extent, if I've hurt them, whether I did it consciously or unconsciously, I have a responsibility to say sorry, or even if I'm in this childlike state, I can't be my 3-year-old, but I can have my 3-year-old free to play. But as a 3-year-old, if I hit you, you'd cry, go off. That doesn't matter. But now I'm an adult having this, I am responsible. Do you feel that also? Like I just can't go around killing people and hurting people, not killing, literally, just hurting people. I'm just going to be this little child. That's also not fun. I don't find it fun. But I find this fun in where I have all my tools, how I'm going to just make sure I don't trip up too much or hide too much in my excitement. If I do, I have to go back and say, sorry, I didn't mean that. Do you have that? Because
I mightn't be answering your question, but two things kind of came to me as you were speaking.
Yeah.
I kind of like how I see myself sometimes, like I'm this being that functions in society, and then I also have this animal body, and it's like how to get both of them in harmony. That's the challenging thing, because it's like if I was to listen to my animal body, it's like I'd be kicking people off the scooters in the street, and I'd be like, if somebody said they didn't like me, I'd punch them or I'd do whatever, and it's like that's not going to function in society. But it can't be fully ignored.
Exactly.
Because if it's fully ignored, then it's a suppression of those inner urges and desires that are there for a reason. But day to day, I need to function in society. I need to get on with people. And for me, it's just about creating a space where I can allow those animal urges out. And sport's a great outlet, and it's one that I use. But all often I was like, scream into a pillow, I'll throw a tantrum on the bed, I'll shout, I'll just do whatever I need. And often that just diffuses it, or diffuses that animal body and go, okay, that's enough of that. And then I can go back to functioning in society.
Then going on from that similar thing, so you've got your nervous system, you're calming down. How much nervous system do you think one should take responsibility for? How much responsibility do you think one should take for the nervous system of the partner?
What do you mean by the nervous system of the
partner?
partner?
Maybe there's something that you're doing, acts that makes your partner nervous, like it's activating her childhood traumas, or she's just very uncomfortable with some things. And how much of that is your responsibility, do you feel?
I think it's my responsibility how much I want to be in that environment. So it's like, if I'm noticing something in my life that I don't like or it's triggering me, it's like, okay, it's like, I have to sit with that and just go, why is that affecting me?
Right.
And sometimes it's my stuff, and then sometimes I actually don't feel it is my stuff.
Right.
But it's like if I don't feel it, if it's my stuff, it's like, okay, I need to deal with it. And sometimes that would be having a chat with her about it, or just saying, would you mind holding a space for me? It's like, I'm noticing this coming up, and I'd love to just explore it with you.
Yes.
And that kind of is like a disarming way of doing it. Then if I feel it's her stuff, which I don't know if it ever is, I tell myself it is.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I approach this?
Mm.
And like that's pretty challenging, because to want anyone to change or function differently is like, does anyone have the right to actually ask that of anyone? I don't know.
Yes.
I feel maybe to a certain extent. It's like if someone wants your better good, it's like you want to push each other
Yes.
to a certain extent,
But not too much.
not too much. Yeah, it's kind of all in moderation and balance. So I'm still figuring out the most effective way.
Yeah.
One thing I've realised is not on a new moon. It's like on a new moon, that's a week either side. We have a rule. It's like if there's anything niggling us or some bit of bickering going on, it's like just park it. If it's important, let's chat about it after that 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like most of the stuff doesn't need to be chatted about. I think we started doing that about a year ago. So I've only had like 2 things where it's like, I'm going to hold on to this for the 2 weeks and I'm going to tell her. Whereas all the other stuff, like the 90% is just like, it just fades away. It's just... But
A week
like,
before the new moon and a week after.
It's just when we're a bit more vulnerable or kind of susceptible to, biting and like barking. And it's just like, okay, this is... Maybe it's not just me. There's a lot of other stuff pulling and pushing us in different directions and stirring up stuff that I can't comprehend and don't need to. But it's like, okay, if I have a bit of awareness at certain times of the month this stuff happens, and maybe it's around her period, it's like, okay, that's not the best time to bring up stuff. It's just to like do that preliminary check-in before delving into it.
Amazing. Wow.
It doesn't always work, we still fight, but it's definitely decreased, and there's less intensity, and definitely the longer I'm with her, the more committed we are to each other, and the safer we feel around each other, which is kind of think what we're all just craving, so to feel safe.
Right. Yes. So that's what I was meaning, like not responsibility that you guys are working towards making sure each of your nervous system is also taken care of. Either it's with agreements before the full new moon or after the new moon, or you have space where she's like, listen, I know you're going through a bad phase and you're going through a challenging phase and you appear to be going out every night with your mates drinking. Now we're on week 2, it's making me nervous because I don't think that's good. So that's what I'm meaning, like, you're like, well, that's your nervous system, I'm dealing with mine with drinking right now. It's like you sit down and you're like, well, do you need to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, does that help you? So that's what I was meaning, how to find this like co-creation.
Yeah, it's kind of co-creation without codependency, isn't it though?
Exactly.
It's like how to find the balance there, because sometimes I've overextended myself to my wife in the past, and I've like told her too much, where it's like, actually that isn't the most functional way. It's like, you don't need to know everything. It's just like, I need space and this is what I'm going to do, and let that be enough. And if you're feeling alone or scared, it's like maybe that's your stuff to deal with during that pattern or that time. I think it's like awareness seems to pop up, and it's like it is all about awareness. It's like, but it's how much can I be aware of and how accountable can I be to all of that.
Thank you so much for your time, Neil. I
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate it. I love this spontaneous call, and I'm really looking forward to us talking again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was
Thank
really
you.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you.